Radio. I'm your host, Pastor Greg, and I'm really excited to welcome my next guest to the program. He is a nationally recognized investigative reporter and war correspondent who was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006 for the work he's done to expose Iran's nuclear weapons program. Prominently featured in the documentary Iranium, Ken's one of a half dozen true experts on the Islamic Republic of Iran in the U.S. today. Since 1995, he has run the Foundation for Democracy in Iran, Iran.org, and regularly meets with Iranian dissidents overseas. He lectures on Iran at the Pentagon's Joint Counterintelligence Training Academy, JCTA. I want to welcome to the program Ken Timmerman. Ken, welcome. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me on, Greg. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, let's talk about this. Of course, there's a lot happening right now. We've been talking about border security and issues that are happening down there, immigration, the president's emergency powers, all those kinds of things. But lost in the shuffle of all of that are moves that Iran is continuing to make in offense against our country. Talk with us a little bit about what's happening in Iran right now and their continued movement towards nuclear armament.
Well, the Iranians just celebrated the 40th anniversary of the Islamic State, the first Islamic State in the Middle East, their revolution in 1979. And from the very outset, Greg, they've been at war with us. It's a war that they declared, not one that we declared, when they took our diplomats hostage in Tehran and kept them for 444 days until Ronald Reagan swore the oath of office in January of 1981. We thought the war was over when the diplomats returned. The Iranians knew better. They've been attacking us ever since, and we have done nothing. We have done nothing in response. I believe that is dangerous. It has certainly encouraged the Iranians to continue attacking us. I can recall just from my own experience, speaking with the son of the former head of the Revolutionary Guards Corps in Iran, who defected to the United States, learned English in my basement watching Jackie Chan movies. And he told me how his father described to him the attack on our Marines in Beirut in October of 1983. I was in Beirut. I had been covering Lebanon that year. I was there when the embassy was blown up in April, and I came back right after the Marines attack in October of 1983. And for the head of the Revolutionary Guards, Mohsen Rezai, the fact that we left Lebanon right afterwards showed that America could be cowed by direct frontal attacks, that America could do nothing, and that Iran, the Islamic regime in Iran, could continue to succeed by attacking us. And they have been doing so for the past 40 years. They continue attacking us. Today, as we speak, in Syria, they are attacking our troops in Syria. They're attacking our facilities. They're attacking our allies in Syria. They've been doing so in Iraq for years. So this regime in Iran believes it has a mission to destroy America and destroy Israel. We are the great Satan. Israel is but the little Satan. And their development of nuclear weapons is part of that overarching plan.
So based on what you're sharing with us, Ken, then withdrawal from Syria, which is initially what the president has announced, would be seen by the Iranians as a sign of weakness and, once again, the ability to be able to bludgeon American troops because of non-commitment into withdrawal and another victory.
Well, yes and no. It depends how we do it.
Okay.
It does depend how we do it.
Sure.
Because if we leave Syria the way the president is saying we're going to leave Syria, which is by making sure our allies on the ground are strong and defended and supported, and if we leave Syria by moving troops over into nearby Iraq, and our base there is only about 40 or 50 miles away, and if we continue to whack the Iranians or ISIS when they are attacking us, then no. then the Iranians can say whatever they wish, but clearly they will not have won. And by the way, there are indications that that's what's happening already. The Iranians have pulled back a little bit from the Israeli border. The Israelis have been hitting them hard. So they're pulling back from the Israeli border. They're trying to reinforce their positions in the area around that Al Tanf base, which is the U.S. base, which straddles the border between Jordan, Syria, and Iraq. It's right in that border area. And they are doing that because they see, America, again, as their enemy, and they want to be able to whack us as much as possible. So we need to continue to support that base, and my understanding is that is exactly what the administration is going to do.
Now, that's awesome, and I greatly appreciate you clarifying that, because, of course, the media and the president's critics have attacked him, attempting to attack him by saying that we're leaving this great big void by pulling out of Syria. And it's really hypocrisy, because the same media people have been crying and bemoaning the fact that we even have troops over there in Syria to begin with. So they're really kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth, it would appear, Ken, to me.
Well, that's right. And it is ironic, as you say, that the media and the left, the Democrats, who, we're going after George W. Bush, for example, for unilaterally invading Iraq, when in fact we had dozens of countries behind us to liberate Iraq from Saddam Hussein. We're going after President Trump for whatever they could go after him for. First, we've got too many troops over there, and now we've got too few. They're never happy. They're a little bit like the French.
Yeah, well, the bottom line here, I think, with this president is that no matter what he does, the media is going to attack him. The Jim Acosta spectacle today proved that. All right. So bearing that in mind, where do you see our Middle East strategy right now under this administration? Are we moving in a better direction? And to what end do you see? I mean, what is the conclusion of all this, I guess, is my question.
Well, I see the president trying to build an international coalition against the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria and the Islamic State in Iran. Let's not forget that. I have ceased calling the Iranian regime a republic years ago, because there's nothing Republican about them. They do not have authentic elections for their leaders. They do not have representative government. They are a theocracy and a dictatorship. So I call them the Islamic State of Iran. And our administration has said we will stand up to the Islamic State of Iran. These past couple of days, they've been meeting in Poland with representatives of 60 nations to build an international coalition to increase the pressure on the Iranian regime. I think that is going to intensify in the coming months. It's going to be diplomatic pressure, economic pressure, renewed economic sanctions, pressure on the Iranian banking system, limitation on imports of Iranian oil, choking off their sources of revenue, and hopefully also the overseas bank accounts of the leaders of the regime. This is something very important. I've been urging this to the administration for some time now. Hit them where it really hurts. The mullahs claim that they are egalitarian, that they are helping the Mozaffan in Iran, the underprivileged, the left behind, but they're not at all. They're just building up these gigantic overseas bank accounts, billions and billions of dollars in Switzerland, Luxembourg, and Malaysia, all over the world in tax havens and places they believe they can keep secret from the U.S. I am confident that our intelligence agencies, the NSA in particular and others, the Treasury Department, can track down that money, expose the money, go after it. That will hit the Iranian regime where it hurts. And I think that was one of the goals of this meeting in Poland.
We'll go. Well, I want to get to the meeting in Poland. I want to also outline for our audience, because really we're dealing with three epicenters of Islamic State: Iran, which is Shiite, the Iraq/Syria Islamic State, which is Sunni, and then we also have Turkey, and Turkey is also Sunni. Is that correct, or are they Shiite?
No, they are Turkey as well, and you're absolutely correct to point to Turkey because they are one of the epicenters as well, for sure.
Yeah, well, and they're trying to recreate the caliphate and reestablish the quote unquote second coming of the Ottoman Empire, and that's something that nobody's paying much attention to, Ken.
Well, that's right. The irony here is that the Turks, the Saudis, and the Iranians are all vying to be the leader of the reinvigorated caliphate. They all want to unite the 57 Muslim countries around the world under a single leader. Erdogan in Turkey has built a palace with 1,000 rooms just so he can host the leaders of the 57 Muslim nations in his new caliphate. And God bless them all. They're fighting amongst themselves, and I suppose that's the one thing that really gives us all hope, is that these three Muslim countries are fighting for domination of the Islamic world, and that fight is not about to end anytime soon.
No, it does not seem that way at all. Talk about the meeting in Poland for a moment, if you would.
Well, so this was a two-day meeting. It was led by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and the Vice President Mike Pence. They gathered leaders from Europe, mostly from Eastern Europe, from the Middle East, many of the Gulf countries, and again, the goal was to do two things. One, to rustle up a posse, if you wish, against the Iranian regime. I think that was a success. And the second goal was to talk about a future of the Middle East when you have peace between Israel and the Palestinians. This is obviously a very difficult topic because the Palestinians themselves do not want peace with Israel. The Palestinian governments in Gaza and the West Bank do not want peace with Israel, and they say so quite openly. They were in Moscow, by the way, at the same time as the United States was meeting with 60 countries. The Russians hosted a mini conference with the leaders of the two Palestinian factions. And so here are the Russians who, for 50 years, have been supporting the Palestinians. The Soviet Union was the biggest backer of the PLO, remember?
Right.
And,
well, they trained Yasser Arafat. Many people don't know that.
Amen.
Yeah,
they certainly did.
Yep. Go ahead.
I saw them in Beirut in 1982. You know, they were big in Beirut supporting the Palestinians.
I was a Russian linguist in the United States Air Force in 1982.
Were you really? I
Yes,
didn't
sir.
know that. We got to talk about that off air, Greg.
Yes.
We can share some stories there.
We'll do that. We'll do that. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah. So at any rate, so Lavrov, the foreign minister, convoked the heads, representatives of Fatah, which is the PLO, and Hamas at the same time. He convoked them to Moscow at the same time the U.S. was meeting with 60 world leaders in Poland. And his goal was to convince Hamas and Fatah to work together in negotiations with the Israelis, and he couldn't even succeed there. I mean, I'm sorry. It just...
Yeah. Well,
the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is the Palestinians have one goal, and it's called To the Sea, and that does not have anything to do with a two-state solution. Their concept is to push Israel out. They are falsely claiming that they have a claim to the territories that are occupied by Israel, and until people wake up to that reality that the Palestinians are dealing in bad faith, I don't know that you can come to a solution.
Right, and they are falsely claiming in English when they speak with the rest of the world that they want peace with Israel, which is not true either. All you have to do is to listen to what they say in their mosques, or listen to what they're broadcasting in Arabic to the people, listen to what they're teaching their children in schools in Arabic. All of these things are available to us either through MEMRI, the Middle East Media Monitoring Institute, MEMRI, or through groups in Israel that are monitoring the textbooks. We know what their intentions are, and you are absolutely correct. It's push the Jews into the sea. That's it. It's very simple. We know that. Extermination of the Jewish people. They have spoken glowingly, repeatedly, and I'm talking about leaders of the PLO, leaders of Hamas, about finishing the work that Adolf Hitler began in exterminating the Jews.
Yes.
This is something that Americans need to understand. This is not some kind of fantasy of philo-Semitic advocates here. This is something that is in their own words. It's what they say to their own people. We need to wake up and understand that.
Well, and we also need to remember the history of that the African Turkish regime, Islamic regime that was fighting under the Nazi flag was so vicious that the Nazis actually said, you can't fight for us anymore. We don't want to be associated with you because of what they were doing to the non-Muslims in Africa as they swept in there during World War II.
So, Faisal Hosseini, I wrote about this in an earlier book of mine called Preachers of Hate, Islam and the War on America. It's the story of Faisal Hosseini, the Mufti of Jerusalem, who traveled to Berlin, met with Hitler, had himself photographed with Hitler. It turns out he was Arafat's uncle, right? They're the same family. He was Arafat's uncle. And he is the one who inaugurated the Muslim brigades that fought with the Nazis. He took that struggle to Bosnia. So this is 1942, 1943. People don't realize this history. But why did we have a Bosnian civil war all these many years later in the 1990s? Well, it was because you had Islamic jihadis who were fascists, Islamo-fascists, who had been working with Hitler. They had put together an Islamic brigade for the Nazis in the 40s, and 50 years later, they were back there at it and doing it again.
Well, and great circling around on this too. I think it's important in our last couple of minutes here that we don't leave folks naive just because there is a three-headed war that's going on. It does not in any way alleviate the threat directly to us here in America and to our American shores, which is in part of the reason why we need to secure our southern border.
Right. The president said quite rightly, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. And that is so true in this country, but it's true in so many other places. Turkey has just completed a border wall with Syria to keep Syrian refugees out from flooding across the border. Israel obviously has a border wall with Lebanon, a very successful border wall. They also have one with the West Bank and with Gaza. And they built the one with the West Bank. It's called the Oslo Wall. Why? Because the Oslo Accord, which gave birth to the Palestinian Authority in 1993, also gave rise to Palestinian terrorism in the West Bank and all those suicide bomb attacks we saw in the early 2000, 2001, 2002. Again, I reported on those in Preachers of Hate, Islam and the War in America. Went to interview the Islamic leaders, the Muslim leaders on the ground, in their mosques, in their offices in Jerusalem, in Gaza, in Amman, Jordan, in Damascus, to report back to people what they say in their own words, because we ignore that to our peril. When they go after the Jews, they're going after America as well.
100. Well, and that's where I want to make sure to bring us back to, because it's great for us to be informed and know what's happening over there. And then I think what happens, Ken, is, and we're going to run out of time with this, but that people then become complacent over here, saying, well, okay, great. They're all killing each other over there. We don't need to worry about it. We can just pull back and be comfortable and isolate ourselves here. And, that's probably a whole nother show, but that doesn't work, because this is a
whole other show, but it is very important to understand it. We
Right.
fight over there to keep from fighting them here.
Yeah.
That's really the bottom line. The president doesn't want us involved in endless wars. He's absolutely correct, but we have to keep up the pressure on them over there one way or another.
Because we face an Islamic global threat, and they believe in their religion that they are the apocalyptic force that is supposed to bring in the end of the world. And the way they do that is by destroying all infidels, and we really better get that straight in our heads.
Amen to that. That is correct, and that's very well put. That is precisely the way that they think, and they're teaching their children to think in the same way. We face a generational struggle as a result of that.
Ken Timmerman has been my guest. He was talking about, give us the name of that book you were talking about, Ken.
Preachers of Hate, Islam and the War on America. It's at my website, kentimmerman.com. I happen to think it's one of the best books that I've written. I've written 11 books of nonfiction. It's my favorite. It's interviews with Muslim clerics in their own words, what they believe and their ideology. It's one of the first books really written about Islamic doctrine right after the 9/11 attacks.
2003 on Crown Forum. Preachers of Hate, Islam, and the War on America. You can find it on the book page at kentimmerman.com, kentimmerman.com. Ken, God bless you. Thanks for all that you do to fight for freedom, for liberty, and to inform us on this very real threat. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Greg, and I am praying for your recovery, and just so glad to hear that you're struggling along and doing well.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much.